So have you ever wondered if there's a way out of the rat race of being a DIY musician? See, at first it's a really cool thing because you just do everything yourself and can get the ball rolling. And then after the ball's been rolling for a minute and you're the only one carrying the weight of it, it starts to take its toll. And I've been a DIY musician for most of my career, still am for a large degree of it, and so I understand what that's like. But one of the things that I've learned in my 10 plus years doing this is how to build this process to delegate some stuff out so that I'm not the one doing every single thing in my business. And I want to show you how to do that in today's video. I want to show you how you can go from doing every little thing in your business to starting to delegate some stuff out, and what that process looks like and how you do it the right way, because there is a wrong way to do this. And if we do it wrong, it's going to end us in a bad position. So let me elaborate a little bit. So the first thing I want everyone to really understand is that you are an entrepreneur by definition. In fact, one of my trainings that I did a couple years ago called the Musicians Ignite Challenge, we actually broke down the definition. We went online and Googled the definition of entrepreneur, and the entertainment industry was in like the B definition of it. So like by definition, by being in this business, being in the music business, which is under the umbrella of the entertainment industry, you have to understand that you're an entrepreneur, so your business has to be taken seriously, right? You have to actually think kind of more like a business person, which I understand is weird at first, but here's what I would argue for a second. You've probably been thinking like a business person without knowing it. You've probably been a business person without knowing it. Let me explain real quick. Do you ever feel like lonely, like no one ever really gets what path you're on? Like you got friends that are supportive, kind of sometimes, and family doesn't really get it, but they try to be nice and save face around you. Like, that's not a great environment, right? Well, guess what? That's the same environment most people are when they start to become entrepreneurs in other industries outside of music. Same exact feeling. Do you ever feel like overwhelmed with all the different stuff you have to do being a DIY musician? Well, that's like the same thing as the owner of a business in a startup phase. So we are very much, by definition, entrepreneurs. And so what I recommend is that we have to actually learn some of the advanced skills of entrepreneurship to start to free ourselves. And I'm going to share that with you right now. So one of my favorite books that I've ever read on business is called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. Please, please, please go pick that book up. I'll put like an affiliate link for the book in the description or something. It's so good. It's like a real cheap book too. Very, very inexpensive. And what you learn from it, one of the golden nuggets of information, there's lots of them by the way. One of my favorites though is learning how to build a system. Okay, now what is building a system? So I'm going to give you an example, a real world example. I was in Nashville playing with Seven Dust. We were on tour with them. And our singer's friend, Stevie, she came out to the show because she hadn't seen Gabriel since like 4th grade or something. It's been so long. But they meet up, right? And we're like, hey, would you be willing to run our merch? And at first she was like, yeah, I'm totally game. How do I do it? And then in that moment I was like, I wish I just had like a piece of paper I could give her that had everything built out. But I had to remember off the top of my head. So I was like, okay, so if you're trying to do this, here's the thing you do here. Here's how you get into the card reader, and here's how you unlock the iPad, and here's the, all the Shopify stuff. Here's how you actually fill out and check out somebody through Shopify. Here's how you take the card. Here's how you do all the stuff. Here's where all the inventory is. I started going through the whole thing, right? I started going through every single detail I could possibly think of that would be useful to her. And then I realized, after telling her that, I'm starting to walk away, and I'm like, man, that would really be helpful if I like wrote that down. I bet that would be helpful. We'll see how she does tonight. So I get up on stage and we're playing the first, or actually it was the last song, and I look over to the left and see her at the merch table, and she is just slinging merchandise like she's on an assembly line. And she was running it so smoothly like she'd been a professional for 20 years. And I was blown away how seamless she was able to integrate into our system because she had an outline. Right? She had an outline. If we hadn't given her that outline, we just said like, all right, here's all the stuff. You got it, right? Cool. And then just left her there. Oh my gosh. She would have felt like she's just like thrown under the bus a little bit. But since we gave her a straight up outline for every single task she would be doing, which is really only like 3 things, taking the money, giving them the inventory, and then marking it down. Those are the three things really you're doing when it comes down to it activity-wise. So as long as she knew what to do there, she could kind of improvise the rest, and she did a great job. She did a great job. We sold 4 figures worth of merch that night. It's a very good night. Thank you, Nashville. You guys are awesome. So the point here is, if you have a system, something that people can follow, now you could start to delegate it out. Now here are the exceptions that you need to be very cautious of, okay? I have a framework that I call SOD, S-O-D, right? SOD, yeah, like the soil, right? So think of it like sod, right? So you have to lay the foundation first, right? You have to lay the sod down. That is starting out where you're at right now. You start doing the system DIY, much like I did in my merch system. What did I do? I sat around behind the merch system for years, or behind the merch table for years, taking people's orders, going through the process, building out a flow so that it wasn't chaotic, and learning exactly how to do it. And then after I met Steve, so I should clarify, I kind of jumped into the second part. So at first I started DIY, did it all myself, learned things, and then the second step is the O, right? Optimize. This is like you're throwing the water, the water over the sod, right? You're kind of starting to nurture this system that you're building. You start to go over it, and this is an important part that a lot of people just go, yeah, it looks good, and then they move on to the last phase. And this is important not to do. Like, please don't just assume that because you can write out the tasks, step 1 to step 2 to step 3 to step 4, that means you have a perfect system ready to be delegated. Now, it's ready to be delegated in the sense that someone can perform it now because you have all their tasks written out. However, is that system a well-performing, optimal system? And a lot of times the answer is no. I know, right? I know this for myself. I know this for the artists I work with. This is just the common thing. When we start out building this system, it's a little clunky at first. Sometimes it works, and then a lot of times it doesn't. We're still trying to figure it out, right? When it comes to anything, whether it comes to someone running your ads, I recommend you get in that Meta Ads Manager, you learn the basics, so that when you start to hire it out, you can give very specific instructions. This is where a lot of people get tripped up, is they don't get the hands-on experience with the thing that they're delegating enough to discern whether the person they've hired is a good hire. People just think, oh, I'm not good at a task, so therefore I should just delegate it out immediately. I would say that's the wrong approach. I would say you need to at least get your feet wet a little bit. You don't got to jump all the way in the pool, go underneath the water above the head or nothing, but get shin deep in what you're learning, dip a toe or two, and start learning some of the basics. For example, I built my own logos in Canva long before I started hiring someone to build out stuff for me in Canva, or build out album artwork or whatever. I just kind of knew what I wanted. I knew the different, you could throw shadows behind stuff. I learned little basic skills that are very easy to learn. I learned little basic skills of design so that I had a vision of different things that I wanted. So now when I go to a freelancer, just imagine it from the freelancer's perspective. They have a client who comes up to them and starts throwing back at them information that helps them do a better job. Or the client that just goes, I don't know, just gotta make something cool, and then hands the workload off. It's like, okay, I guess I'm just going to do a shot in the dark here. If you're thinking about it from the freelancer's perspective, they're thinking like, wow, I like that other client who gave me all this information that I could do to use to make a real specific cool thing they want. So when you understand, you dip your toe into whatever it is you're learning. And I know some people are going to disagree with me, like, no, it takes too much time to learn how to do those things. Here's what I would throw back at you. Have you ever heard of the 80-20 principle? Here's what I learned from one of my mentors very early on, which is that most of the knowledge, the 80%, the 20% of knowledge that's responsible for the 80% of the outcome can be learned in like 3 months. Like at max. Seriously. Like the basic skills to do basic Canva graphic design should take you 1 to 2 months, probably, right? You learn in that 1 to 2 months doing it, the 20% of information that will allow you to communicate with professionals who have taken the extra time to go through the other 80% of information that's only responsible for 20% of the overall results. That's who you can go to the professionals for, is the people that have spent the time to gather that 80% of knowledge, as opposed to you who's just getting into it. You just need the 20% of knowledge that's going to be responsible for the 80% of output. Does that make sense? So hopefully you guys understand that it's about you get your feet wet in whatever it is you're doing, so that when you go to delegate, you know what this thing looks like correctly. And I would argue that you spend more money through trial and error hiring people, not knowing how to operate a system, than just learning how to operate the system efficiently and then hiring someone to go, hey, I got something working here, do this, and then add your expertise to it, but just do this system, right? That's a better way to go about it, because there is a certain point where you can over-delegate, okay? This is a big problem. I've met with a couple artists that have had this over-delegation problem, where they think the answer is just to keep hiring people to do stuff for them. There is a point to which that's the answer. But if the income generated from you hiring someone doesn't result in a 3x increase in what you're bringing in to justify this new budget, you shouldn't be hiring them. Let me say that again, because I know that was kind of fast, and it's really important that we internalize this. Unless the person you're hiring is going to result in a 3x increase in revenue, right? This system's making $100. If by hiring this person, it doesn't increase to $300, we probably shouldn't be hiring them. We should optimize the system to be able to be so optimized that we can afford to delegate. That is why I say, please, please do not skip the O step. Please do not skip it. It's the longest part of it, right? But it's worth it, because when you hire it out, you have peace of mind, and not the peace of mind, the false peace of mind that people that don't understand the thing, they hire it out and they assume, well, I've hired the professional now I don't have to think about it at all. It's like, unfortunately for a lot of you, that is a position that you have to build up and earn to, as opposed to you can just right now, just because I can afford to pay someone $500 every 2 weeks doesn't mean I should, unless what I'm going to be paying them can result in $1,500, right? So that they're only 20 to 30% of the budget of that system. So, or like if a system is bringing in $1,500, I can afford to pay someone $500 because that's 30%, right? That's a little on the expensive side. You want to try to keep it 20 to 30, but hey, you want to pay people well so that they do well and stick around. I'm definitely a proponent of, if you can afford to, tip someone or pay them well in a reasonable way, to really like say, I know we agreed it's going to be like 100, but here's 150 just because I thought it was so good. It's a nice little gesture if you can afford it. If not, no, don't worry about it. But it's just a little bonus thing I wanted to throw out there. So then once you get to that point where you have optimized the system, you've been watering the grass and watering the sod, and things are starting to be nurtured and starting to grow now, then you can delegate, right? Using my sod analogy, that's like the equivalent of now you got sprinklers that are installed, automated. They go off on the times they need to go on to keep maintaining the yard, and then you don't have to do it anymore, right? That is, it's a rough analogy, right? But hopefully you understand the point. Hopefully you understand the point of, like, you start out DIY, you figure out what the heck is going on, and you start, okay, now as I've been doing this for a while, you start to optimize. You start to optimize. Okay, I can do this better. I can do this better. Oh, I learned this, and I learned this. And after running my merch table and getting it optimized for 5, 6, 7 years, whatever, then I was at a point where I could clearly communicate to a new merch person in 15 seconds, 30 seconds, exactly how our system ran. And she ran it to the point where she was just like a pro. But if I hadn't done the work to optimize, to be able to communicate exactly what needs to be done, how it's supposed to be done, and the easiest way to do everything, we would have been throwing her to the wolves, And then when you delegate, you have a system. You have something you can hand to someone and say, listen, if you ever get in a rut, you ever get in trouble, follow this baby, and you will be fine, right? That is the point of a system. Why do you think McDonald's is so good at maintaining operations? I shouldn't say it was so good at maintaining operations. The reason McDonald's has traditionally been very good at maintaining their operations, despite having a very high employee turnover, meaning they fire a lot of people and a lot of people get hired. And why does that happen? Because they have a great system. If you go watch the movie The Founder, there's a lot of embellishments. They kind of paint Ray Kroc as a villain. They sort of leave out some very important details where he didn't take a paycheck for 15 years, but whatever, I'll forgive it. I've read the book, and so I'm just like, what the heck? What are you guys doing? But besides the point, McDonald's had a system. The McDonald's brothers, they built a system that was just tested and beautiful. And that is what they were able to franchise out and scale. Now when someone buys a McDonald's, they're not buying the McDonald's. They're buying the system. Now I want you to think about this. If you're a business, let's say, if you're a music business and you're eventually wanting to get signed with a record label. I have my own opinions about record labels, but some of you out there really want to get signed with a label one day. I'm not going to diss you and your goals and stuff. That's your goals. So let me tell you something. Who would a label be most likely to invest in? Someone who's got systems that they can just start taking over, or an artist where they have to build everything from scratch? So you look more appealing to all the people who would want to throw some money at you. Because one day, I believe the time that you work with labels is at the very, 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 very end of your career. And when I say the very end, I mean the end. I mean, you better be in a wheelchair by the time that you're dealing with these record labels. What do I mean? Because at that point, you can talk about selling your catalog rights. And that's where a lot of big money is made, is in your catalog. So I think it's more valuable to work with them in that capacity, because if you can build up your music business to the point where a label would want to invest in you, why wouldn't you just keep doing it yourself? You've clearly demonstrated the business acumen to get yourself to that point. You could just learn how to scale now. Now you can do it yourself. You don't have to give away any ownership. And you've obviously learned how to delegate really well by that point as well. So hopefully you guys understand how to start to get out of the DIY rut where you're doing every little thing yourself and stuck under this like permanent rock like Atlas, just constantly holding up your music business, and it feels like it's just the weight of the world on your shoulders. So what you can start to do now is, even though in the beginning you're still going to be in those, doing those tasks, but now you're going to have a different mindset. Now you're going to have the mindset of like, I'm not just a hamster on the wheel going through this. You can take a step out and look at it and go, how can I turn this into a system? Okay, now that I've gotten it writ out, there's my southernisms coming up. Now that I have it written out, how do I start to optimize it so that it's really giving me the conversions I need, the results I need, it's as smooth as possible, it's been tested many times, those type of things, going through the optimization phase. And then you start to go, okay, I've got this really killer system now. I can just hire someone and know that even if I hire someone who isn't an A-level merch person, A-level advertising manager, A-level whatever, I've got a system I can give them that will work because I've been running it for X amount of months or years. Okay, so I hope you guys have gotten a lot of value from this. The last thing I want to leave you with is, I know you might be like, well, Dax, I still have to do all this stuff. That's a little overwhelming. So here's what I would tell you. If you're going to invest to get help with anything in your music career, I recommend doing what I've done in the past. That's been the most successful for me. So I'm just speaking about what's been most successful for me, which is I invest in mentors and coaching. That's what I've done traditionally through my entire career that's helped me get results. Is I'll be sitting there doing a thing, and if I honestly am stuck, like for example, maybe one of the systems you're trying to optimize is your ads. Maybe you just like, dude, I can't optimize these any further. I don't know anything about how to optimize this. It's worth investing in someone who can show you how to do it. I am a big believer in getting skills, because skills make you valuable. Now, some people don't want to learn ads. I understand. Just know it'll be a long, painful, and expensive process to figure out who's going to be the right person to run your ads, as opposed to just learning the foundations of what makes something work. So for example, if you're trying to learn something about Spotify ads or running Facebook meta ads to Spotify, Andrew Southworth has great trainings on that. He is a potential great mentor for you if that's the area you're looking to increase your skills in. If you want to learn more about like email marketing and how to tell stories that communicate your story to fans so that you can sell more, that's when you talk to somebody like me, right? When you like, there's all different kinds of resources out there for you as an artist in this day and age to get help with whatever it is you're struggling with right now. So whether you're struggling with marketing, selling, content, songwriting, there are people out there to help you. I know my buddy Connor Frost does songwriting coaching, and he helps a lot of people actually start to get the wheels going when it comes to songwriting. And this is just evidence that the time we live in is so exciting because you have all these resources. Some people out there don't want to spend all the hours reading books. They would rather just get the one-on-one result. Or maybe you're a course type person. I know not everybody's a course person, so if that's not you, don't worry about taking a course. Get the stuff that matches with your learning style. There's so many ways to increase your skills, and I just don't want anybody to feel so overwhelmed like, there's no way I can learn how to manage all this stuff. Hey, that's a skill, believe it or not. It's called time management and project management. Those are skills that you can learn. So all the emotions that you feel about, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this, those are all skills that can be learned, and nothing decreases risk more than increasing your knowingness, okay? So I recommend that if you're feeling overwhelmed in a particular area and you've been doing it for a while and you haven't seen the optimization phase go as well as it needs to get to a point where you can confidently hire out, then look at getting someone who can help you build those skills up so you can start to see the results and then delegate confidently. So thank you guys for watching. If you got a lot of value from this video, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. It really helps out the channel. Also, give us a like and a comment, all that good YouTube stuff. And I recommend, if you're someone who wants some help, like I mentioned earlier, with kind of building up your fan base and getting those core fans that actually care about your music, I've got an application for a coaching call in the description. So if that's something interesting to you, you can check it out. Otherwise, I will see you guys on another video inside Musicians Ignite. Take care.